Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Hayden. I'm with Fierce. And today I'm joined by Sherry Goldberg, GCI Health President. And Sherry, first of all, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I would love it if you could just take a moment and introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Well, hello, Sherry. Nice to be here. For the past 12 years, I have led GCI in the U.S. Certainly quite a challenge and exciting opportunity. And really where I'm very focused now is leading my team and my clients into the future and really focused on how we can be most impactful as health communicators. So great to be here.
Yeah. The last 12 years have been pretty impactful 12 years. So
Lots of,
just fascinating.
yeah, lots of changes.
Yeah. I love that. So we'll open us up here and just kind of an open-ended question to get us started here. I would love it if you could just set the stage for us by describing kind of how you see the industry evolving and where your team is most focused in driving innovation.
Well, I think we can all agree that the only constant right now is change.
Yes.
And, you know, I wake up every day as a person and as a health communicator and as a leader, realizing that I don't really know what's in front of me, but I know I'm going to need to be light on my toes and be nimble and be agile. And to me, that is where we really need to center our work as leaders and as communicators. So what I'm always telling my clients and what I'm telling my team is kind of a three-tiered approach, which is we've got to focus on the science, we have to be agile, and we have to find impact in everything we do. And from a science perspective, it's really about communicating to your stakeholders with what they need to hear from a science perspective. Certainly agility is what I just talked about. I mean, we do not know what each day is going to hold, and it's our job as communicators to really guide our own stakeholders there. And from an impact perspective, you know, none of it matters if what we're putting out there doesn't elicit the behavior change that we have in mind. So that is really what I consider the guiding light in this time of change and innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of change and innovation, with breakthrough in areas like AI-driven drug discovery, advanced cell therapies, biotech sector, as you know, is walking these halls here today, is poised to revolutionize healthcare, promising highly personalized and often life-saving treatments. However, this incredible progress is unfolding against a backdrop of increasing public skepticism and the rapid spread of misinformation about health and science. So what do companies need to do today to build credibility and trust in their science and their R&D pipelines?
Well, we're all here talking about science, right? And from a science perspective, it is about having scientific acumen, but it's really about understanding our stakeholders and where they need to and how they need to hear their scientific information. So what an investor may need to hear and understand about science is going to be very different than the Gen Pop. And for some people, you know, it might be a PhD or an MD that needs to explain that science and bring it to life. And honestly, in some, it might be an influencer. And so it's really about understanding that deeply. But you also ask about AI, and that, of course, makes me think about dis and misinformation, which as communicators, we're still talking about. And we haven't really solved it, but we know that it is one of our biggest challenges and opportunities. I'm very happy and fortunate because as part of being part of Bursting Group, we have access to some incredible AI-driven tools that are allowing us to be on the forefront, not just of mis and disinformation, but of health-specific mis and disinformation. And I think by using that, that is the only way we can actually be involved and help solve what I think we can all agree is an actual public health, you know, crisis when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's remarkable. It's a remarkable time, that's for sure. And kind of building on that some more even, you know, the pace of change and disruption in the industry is relentless. You know, how can executives best prepare to face what's ahead and see around corners to anticipate trends and potential crises while also juggling the day-to-day demands of the communications role?
Yeah, I'll go back to what I said before. I think agility is the new stability in many ways. And in order to be agile and as communicators often to both convene those around us, but also lead our executives forward, we've got to be nimble. We have to be able to be proactive. And so what I'm always thinking about with my clients is what is your business strategy and using that as our North Star. So even as we're zigging and zagging as we need to, we're using that as our guide at all times. Now, Of course, I think AI is also helpful from a day-to-day perspective
Yeah.
as we tackle, kind of our to-do lists and our what's in front of us. And I certainly think there's a role for everyone, my colleagues at GCI, but also my clients in finding efficiencies, faster ways of doing things with AI. And that's just the bottom rung of how to use
Right.
it.
Right.
But I do think that can help as we are battling not only what's in front of us, but trying to see down the path and predict to the best we can.
Yeah, I agree. I think AI gives you a little space sometimes
Yeah,
because you can get
agree.
rid of that like administrative stuff a little bit.
Yeah,
So
agree. And it
yeah,
helps you think a little
yeah,
differently, And when I use it, I'm always pleased. It doesn't give me the answer,
no,
but it often pushes me in a direction that I hadn't had the space to initially think
Right,
of or go there. And, I appreciate that push and that nudge.
yeah, exactly, and helps you be a little more agile because you have a
Yeah,
little more room
exactly. Exactly.
to pivot, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, in this current economic climate where every investment is scrutinized, how should C-suite executives evaluate the impact of their communication strategies and narratives?
When it comes to strategies, I think we have to remember as communicators that our communication strategy has to be rooted in the business strategy. And so that should anchor everything we do. That should anchor every narrative we write. But a narrative is only as good as who is reading it and understanding on it, but most importantly, acting on it. And one thing at GCI, we've started our own movement about banning impressions because
Yes,
impressions, in a
yes,
lot of ways, it's just a
yeah,
vanity,
yes,
metric. And so if we're writing narratives, if we're investing in the interviews that go into a narrative and the points of view, and we're all spending resources putting it through review, it's got to actually drive the desired behavior change. And so we are very focused on impact as actually the core measurement when it comes to narratives or really any other communication. And I really hope as an industry, we continue to do that too. We've got to bring along our executives and our other stakeholders too, because often I hear people still talking about impressions, but
yeah.
we've got to understand more deeply what is going to actually move the needle to that desired outcome.
Do you find yourself doing that like impression education with your
Yes.
clients? Yeah, I can imagine.
We spent the last year doing impression education
Yeah.
internally, and as we have been driving that externally with our clients, more and more of them are saying, yes, yes, but they've got to bring their internal team
Yep.
along too. And, it's really, if we're going to actually drive behavior change, it's not just eyes, it's eyes when somebody is open to receiving the information and actually taking the step forward or the desired change to make that happen. And it's been very exciting as we have a whole like media impact approach that we use with our clients. And it's been very exciting to really push everybody forward. So it's my hope that a year from now, when we're gathering at Fierce, that we're all looking at measurement in terms of impact instead of
Yes.
just eyes and numbers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, the impressions they've always been that way. So
Yeah.
I love that
Remember
idea.
the days and when I first started out, it was all about how you couldn't measure PR. And PR is a simple way of stating what we all do as health communicators and health impact communicators. But, in fact, you can measure what we do, and we're going to validate our profession much more, driving that dialogue and conversation.
Great. I love it. Well, I look forward to next year.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, on that theme of looking forward here, if you could leave pharma and biotech leaders with one takeaway or piece of advice, say you were closing us out for the week here, what would be the piece of advice that you would impart on them?
There's still a gap in information out there. The good news is that as health communicators, we really have a seat at the table. And I've seen that evolve a lot in the last couple of years. And so we have the opportunity truly to innovate, to change the future. We have gone from being a catch-all function where someone has a patient and they don't know what to do with them and, oh, we want some social content, to really driving a sophisticated function forward. And I think that's a huge opportunity for all of us. As I look internally at GCI and I'm building my team, I'll come back to what I started with, which I think is about science, agility, and impact. And I think those are the things that are going to drive us all forward because it is about the science. I mean, we're all here because of the brilliant science and research that is out there for us to communicate about. But we've got to do it in a way that is going to drive impact reach stakeholders in a way that they are going to understand, and be able to communicate beyond the basics of pipeline or commercialized product. There's so much more out there.
Right.
From an agility standpoint, I don't think any of us believe there's going to be a clear stability anytime soon.
No.
And so, look, in a way, that's exciting. But you've got to build a workforce and build stakeholders around you that are also able to zig and zag and move quickly while still keeping their eye on our business strategy and our comm strategy as the North Star. And then again, impact. I think it all comes down to impact as a function.
Yeah, I agree. Can you talk a little bit about, like, when we talk about impact, can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. When it comes to impact, it's really about what is going to actually move the needle. And as communicators, it might be a narrative that we're trying to tell or a scientific explanation we're trying to get out there. It might be that we're trying to get a hospital administrator to buy a device. So it's a matter of getting your message out there in a time and a place where the reader or the audience is going to ingest it in a way that is going to actually result in a behavior change and actual momentum and impact into the future.
Love it. It's great. Sherry, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.